Let me ask this now. One of the questions, but let me ask. This is just want to ask if this makes sense or not. I mean, yeah, the wording on that last one could have been better, so I did fix it. I just want to make sure this makes sense, though. I mean, these questions, most of them have just coming from the textbook. So, well, actually, if you look at the answer key, the order of the answer keys is actually way off, but still. I just want to make sure everyone is learning this. That's all I care about. And we have another example. All right, I guess that's okay. All right. Are there any questions at all? Fix the wording. There we go. Feel better now. Okay, so we have that. Next, here's another example. I thought it'd be good to do this one with the bias. Make sure that good. I just want to make sure I was recording and you guys can hear me. So this is with bias, okay? All right. In other words, you're identifying the most relevant source of bias in each of these three situations. With the first one, they're asking, should the mall prohibit loud and annoying rock music in clothing stores catering to teenagers? What kind of bias would this be then? Notice the wording, intent. Well, it would be there you go. It would be a loaded question. When you look at the wording there, they're not just asking if they should prohibit rock music. They said loud and annoying rock music, right? Loud and annoying rock music. That's a loaded question, isn't it? Now this wording here, let me get that pen feature. Right? The wording here, this would lead you to say no, they should prohibit it. Loud and annoying. If they said entertaining, maybe then it would be loaded as well, but towards the other direction. They said loud and annoying. All right, that's one example. What about this one? What about number two? A study seeks to investigate whether new pain medicine is safe to market to the public. Okay. So they randomly select 300 men from a set of volunteers. What about that one then? Well, because they're volunteers, that'd be volunteer response bias. You don't want to have just volunteers in the survey. That's where that bias is going to come from. Volunteer response bias. Volunteer response bias. That's where that comes from. That's what you don't want to have. That's when the sample is all volunteers. You don't want to have that. All right, what about the next one? This one's kind of similar to what I said about Manhattan. Well, notice they're only looking at Oneonta High School, right? They said what high school students in New York State think of Donald Trump. But they're sending it out to Oneonta High School. That's one city in New York. I don't know if Oneonta is really a city or not. Well, one part of New York State. To me, that'd be sampling bias. Not everyone Not every high school student is like the students at SUNY Oneonta, at Oneonta High School. I don't know why I put SUNY in there. Cross that out. At Oneonta High School. SUNY. All right. So, remember, you want your sample to be representative of the population. Okay. All right, those were some examples. Hopefully they engaged you guys a little. So, all right. Well, let's move on. Okay. All right, so I think this might be where I left off last time, although I don't think I said anything on this slide. Well, anyway, usually when someone does a study, when they're analyzing something about a population or whatever, they're either going to do an observational study or they can do an experiment. Basically, it's going to be one or the other. I have the definition. I have the definitions here, but basically, an observational study is when you observe something. It's based on observations. In other words, you're just observing. You may have a sample and population, but all you're really doing is observing. You're not like administering something to them. It's not like with the what do you call it? The vaccine, like medicine. There, you're administering something to some people. And you're administering something else to the other people. So here we're just observing things. Whereas in an experiment, that's where you actually want to see the effects of treatment, but you do some manipulation. In other words, in one group of people, as I say here, in some group of people or some subgroup of the population, of the sample, what you would do is you would give that group a treatment, whatever it is. You want to know if it works or not. The other group, you would have to give something else or not give them anything. Although we'll see shortly actually what can happen. But there you're doing some kind of manipulation, an experiment. You're manipulating and seeing the effects. Almost like what you think of when you do a science experiment, right? You're manipulating and you're seeing what happens. Well, that's what happens here. That's what we're doing here, an experiment. We're giving them some kind of treatment, some kind of pill, medicine, whatever, but not to everyone. We want to see what effects it has. That's usually what they do with like vaccines, medicines, like this COVID vaccine. That's what they're doing. They're doing experiments to see if it works or not. Let me just say this. I was going to say it later. I don't think it's it's not on the next slide. Usually with observational studies, usually there you can't give, certain people, how do I say this? You can't administer something for ethical reasons. In other words, one may do an observational study instead of an experiment because of some ethical considerations. For instance, if you want to see, let's say, what effect does smoking have on people? You can't go up to healthy people and tell them to smoke cigarettes, right? I don't think they do. I'm pretty sure you can't do that. Or if you want to know what effects a certain disease like COVID has on someone, you can't give that to someone. You can't do that. What they can do, however, is find out, who already has it, or from smoking, who has been smoking for a long time. They can observe what's happened to those people. That they can do. That would be an observational study. So for ethical reasons, you can't do an experiment, but you can do an observational study. Even with diseases, same idea. You can't purposely give someone the flu, right? But if you want to observe what it does to someone, if they already have it, then you can observe. That's a totally different story. Right. That's probably how they got the effects of COVID, I'm guessing. They saw people who had it and they saw what it did to people. So, and these are just two examples I just quickly wrote. If someone wants to explore the effects of music on temperament, right? So they measure how people react to different types of music. This would be an experiment, and the music would be the treatment. They're seeing what effects will music have on treatment, right? Let me go back. In an experiment, some kind of treatment is being applied to the subject. And the results are recorded. In other words, you're giving them something in an experiment. Oh, sorry, wrong button. In this example, the treatment would be the music. You're not really giving it to them, but you're seeing what effect it has on them. The people listening to different types of music, and they want to record what effects it has. In this experiment, you're kind of doing it yourself. You're trying out a new bathroom cleaner. You're applying it to clean your bathroom. That would be, I guess, technically maybe not all the details of an experiment. I'm guessing maybe the following week or whatever, you would clean the bathroom with something else, but the cleaner would be the treatment. Well, if you have two bathrooms, I guess, the same size or whatever, one bathroom you try out the new treatment, and one you try out what you've been using. But you want to see, is the treatment having an effect or not? Is the treatment worth it? Is the treatment useful? Does it do what it's supposed to do? That's really what you're looking for. Good, good. Now, you probably have heard also about how classical music can lead people to get better grades. Maybe someone is stating that as a possibility. Then what they want to do is do an experiment to see, does that work? So maybe related to this experiment, someone could play classical music for a group of people and not play it for the other group. They might see that, oh, well, the classical music caused them to have better grades, see? Or they might administer an exam or something. But there's really something else going on in the background, isn't there? There's really another variable, the amount of stress. I'm sure you've seen this, that when you're stressed out more, it's harder to do well on exams and stuff. This leads to the idea of, where is it? Here it is, confounding.